So far, we're 6 games into the season. We're 2-4, and we have to confront the reality that this Patriots team is a bad football team. You know me, and the thing that I hold on to the most in NFL and how I evaluate teams is the win-loss record, because that says it all. It is so cut, clear, and concise, and that's the beauty of the NFL. And at this moment in time, 2-4 is just not good enough. And I think the worst thing is, for the first 5 weeks, we made mistakes along the way that cost us these games. We had dumb penalties. We turned the ball over. Mac Jones wasn't playing at the greatest of levels. He was playing okay. But tonight, it was one of those things where we didn't have many big penalties, right? We didn't have big blunders where Damian Harris is going into the end zone and fumbles the football. Mac Jones had that one horrific interception, but he came back immediately and essentially, corrected his blunders. So what I'm trying to get at is we usually win these games, and I thought we played a clean, good game to win the game. Unfortunately, it just wasn't good enough. And my biggest takeaway is we used to win these games. And obviously, we are the vaunted New England Patriots of 20 years of excellence, blah, 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 blah. But all that aside, we used to win these close one-possession games, and now we're not. And that's the biggest, most concerning thing for me.
No, I feel you on that. And, the biggest two takeaways that I'm going to take out of this game is Josh McDaniels, his play calling in this, whether you want to blame it on Bill for supporting it and going along with it, or, Mac Jones is checking down at the line of scrimmage. But at the end of the day, Josh McDaniels is the offensive coordinator of this team. And I want to go back, and I think it was like a third down in like 3 or something like that, and Mac Jones had yet to throw an incompletion in this game. I think he was 9 for 9 at that point. He threw 7 passes in the first half. He was 7 of 7 for 100 yards and a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And they come out, they have this play, and it's like 3rd and 3 or whatever, and they hand the ball to not Damian Harris, not Ramondre Stevenson, who looked good tonight, but to Brandon freaking Bolden. And what does he do? He loses a yard, and they punt the ball away. And, the conservative play calling that this team is going through, and, I expected it, early on in the season, maybe weeks, 1 through 3, and I'll even give them 1 through 4, but we're in week 6 now, and they are still calling this conservative. I think Mac, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Jay, Mac Jones has done enough to earn the trust of the coaching staff at this point to let him air the ball out. He's completed 70% of his passes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting point, and this is to my bigger, conversation about Mac Jones, and we'll get to that in a second. But, just to give you guys some quick context on Brandon Bolden, he had 1 rush tonight for -1 yard and did absolutely nothing. I mean, that's horrific, right? But I think the one thing that I do like about this team tonight is the fact that Damian Harrison and the run game kind of showed up. Damian Harris had 18 carries for 101 yards, 5.6 average and 1 touchdown. Ramondre Stevenson had 5 carries for 23 yards, which is 4.6 average per carry and 1 touchdown. But listen, I want to get back to that point about Josh McDaniels. And I saw last week in the Houston game where they got down to the red zone and they decided to put Mac Jones at a wide receiver and run Wildcat, okay? I thought that was a 1-week thing. I didn't think much of it. We saw it again tonight against the Cowboys where they're in the end zone. Mac Jones was sent out to the wide receiver spot, and Damian Harrison took the Wildcat formation in the first quarter, right? And my question is, why do they feel the need to consistently take the ball out of Mac Jones in the end zone? And I know what you're going to say is the fact that we think we've seen enough out of Mac Jones for us to cut it for us as fans to cut it loose. But what are they not seeing in practice that they don't have this good vibes about letting him cut it loose, right? And essentially the point I'm trying to drive is one of the guys on Boston Radio this week, and Paul Perillo was bringing this up, he thinks it comes down to the fact that they had quite a bit of work in the red zone in the off season, especially in OTAs and in summer training camp. And a lot of the general sentiment out of those practices was Mac Jones looks a little shaky in the red zone. And I think that's carrying over to the games because listen, I think it's not smart of us to say that Josh McDaniels all of a sudden this year is a bad offensive coordinator. I mean, at the end of the day, he's working with what he has on the field, right? Like, I understand his play calling isn't up to par, but I don't think overnight he's become a dumbass moron of an offensive coordinator. He is probably seeing something in the practice field that isn't giving him the confidence to call some of those plays in the red zone. So how much of this is on Mac that he doesn't have the confidence of the training of the coaching staff, and how much of this is Josh McDaniels just being a complete ass, which I don't think he overnight forgot how to be an offensive coordinator.
Well, I'll go back to this, and I'm curious to know what you think about this. But like, did Tom Brady make Josh McDaniels like a good offensive coordinator? Because obviously last year with Cam Newton, they weren't running what Josh McDaniels was running with the Patriots for the last 7, 8, 9 years that he's been here. They ran obviously a different offense, so obviously you give him a pass for last year. But like, Mac Jones is. And I'm not trying to compare him to Tom Brady, but he's the same style of quarterback that Tom Brady is. He's a pocket passer. He's not mobile. They have the ability to run the offense that they ran for the last 15 years. And, part of it came up to me, during this game tonight, when the Patriots had to take a timeout in the second half, Mac Jones was coming off the field and it looked like he was yelling at the sideline. Like, what are you doing? Like, and they showed McDaniels after that, and there was obviously some sort of disconnect there. And, you do remember that. And,
yeah.
Mac Jones, aside from the interception he threw tonight, obviously it was a bad spot. And, again, he made up for it a play later.
Of course.
And, that was a great rebound for the kid. But, like, this kid is extremely accurate when he throws the ball. And obviously he's a rookie, so we're going to ride the ups and downs of, what he is. He's going to make mistakes, he's got to grow as a professional. But like, the throws he made tonight, that was the only one that I think it hit Bourne's hands too on that.
Yeah.
It was high. I put it on Mac. It was a high pass. It wasn't an easy catch for Bourne to make. But that was the only throw tonight that you really cringed on when you saw him throw it. So it's like, let the kid throw the ball. They get too conservative. And I know you brought up last week against Houston. There was a time where last week against Houston where they ran play action twice. They picked up 20 yards of play. And that they get down into the red zone and they run 3 freaking screen plays in a row. And even Josh McDaniels admitted after that game that he was going to take some criticism for that and he understood why people were criticizing him for it. Tonight, it seems like they were way too conservative in a game when, the offense on the other side of the field, albeit the Patriots defense was making plays when they needed to, but they were dicing them up the whole game. Dak Prescott threw for 445 yards in this game, and I think there was a stat, it was like, 500 and change yards in this game, and it's the most that they've given up since Belichick's been the head coach there. So, like, you knew you had to pace with that offense, and, you're coming out, you're running conservative play calls when your defense has been on the field for 3/4 of the game. I don't blame them, especially in the second half, for giving up as many yards and as many plays as they did. I'll get into, we'll get into the individuals on the defense in a little bit here, but I don't blame them for being absolutely gassed at the end of this game. What was the time of possession of this game? It was 39-17 to 26-51. That seems a little bit closer than I thought it was, but they were playing defense the whole game. And you're coming out, you're running these conservative play calls, and you end up putting the ball away.